real world, all that matters is whether you successfully completed the task assigned to you or not. If you want to be successful, that's going to be the case in any line of work. The Post-Millennial reports on Tuesday, the San Francisco Public School District announced a new grading policy that will allow students to graduate classes with a score as low as 21%. The grading for equity method eliminates homework and weekly test scores from a student's final semester grade. Instead, there will be one test at the end of each semester to decide if a student has passed the class. And that exam can be retaken several times. Maria Su, the superintendent of San Francisco Unified School District, enacted the new guidelines without seeking approval from the board. Changes will impact 10,000 students across 14 high schools. Students may submit assignments late, fail to attend class, or choose not to attend without consequence to their academic performance. As of current, receiving an A requires a minimum score of 90%, while a D is set at 61%. Under the new scale, a student can obtain an A with a score of as low as 80% and a D with a score as low as 21%. So that's what they're doing there. Some more equitable practices in school, supposedly. I will say I agree with one part of this. I agree with getting rid of homework. That is one supposedly woke education policy that I'm on board with. Because to me, it's actually anti-woke. I think that getting rid of homework itself is woke, okay? That's why homework is woke, kids, I would argue. Because the problem with homework is that it allows the school, the public school, to claim even more of the time that should be yours with your own child. It's just it's like the school system's way of intruding into the home even more than they already are. Because when a child leaves home, he should be with his parents. He should be with his family. That should be family time. And it's important for kids to have time with their families. It's critically, absolutely, essentially important, obviously. And with homework, the school's saying, no, sorry, that time still belongs to us. We're gonna take some of that time. And most of the homework is just busy work. So kids are being sent back to their homes with busy work to do. And now, rather than having family time, they have busy work to do. You get, the kids are in school for 6-7 hours a day. That's plenty of time if you're the school. If you need to send the kids home with homework, then you're not using that time efficiently. That's a you problem as a school. That's a you problem as a teacher if you feel like you need to send them home with busy work. That tells me you're not using your time efficiently. You've got more than enough time to teach all the stuff you need to teach. Use the time efficiently. Don't send them home to me with busy work to do. Not me specifically, because my kid's homeschooled, but I'm saying as a parent. So I'm with them on eliminating homework, although, of course, their reason is not the same as my reason. And the rest of this stuff, though, is insane. 21% is a passing grade, which is just another way of saying that every kid will pass every class no matter what. You can get a 21% if you show up. Just show up to class on occasion, sign your name to a couple of worksheets, and you'll get 21%. So every kid passes no matter what. That's the policy. A kid can get, 19% of the answers wrong on a test or an assignment and still get an A. There are no consequences for coming to class late or turning in assignments late. It's all just insane. We're all feeling it. Costs are rising on everything: gas, groceries, home repairs. And if you're a homeowner, you've probably thought, should I call American Financing to refinance and pay off this credit card debt? Then you second guess yourself because of that low mortgage rate that you currently have. Well, listen, that low rate, it's not saving you if you're drowning in credit card interest at 25% or more. That's the math that no one wants to face, but it's costing you thousands of dollars. Here's the truth. If you're only making minimum payments, that debt will follow you for years. And that's why people are calling American Financing, because they're saving customers an average of $800 a month by using their equity to finally break free from credit card debt. You owe it to your family to see what's possible. No upfront fees, no pressure. It costs you nothing to find out what you could save every month. And if you start today, you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. Call American Financing today, 866-569-4711. That's 866-569-4711, or visit americanfinancing.net/Walsh. And as more schools turn to these kinds of policies and methods, they really remove the one single potentially redemptive thing about public school. There are many problems with public school. The quality of the education is bad. Much of what the kids are taught is false. The culture in the school is toxic and hostile to your values if you're a Christian or a conservative. The schools are left-wing indoctrination centers, all of that. Even in the midst of all that, the one possible bright spot, the one advantage, which is still not nearly enough to outweigh all the disadvantages, but the one thing that you should be able to say is that going to school in this kind of structured environment could teach kids discipline and help them to develop a work ethic, right? I'll admit that this can be a challenge with homeschooling. Homeschooling, no matter what you do in life, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be disadvantages. Homeschooling is no exception. Homeschooling can be looser. It can be less structured, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, there are a lot of advantages to that. But what you can lose if you're not careful is some of the discipline, because kids are not required to get up and physically go to a class and deal with some of the demands that you get in that kind of structured school environment. So a downside to homeschooling, a potential downside that can happen if you go about it the wrong way, is that it can get a bit casual, a bit loose, overly so. And this is one problem that you would think a traditional school environment would not have, because they have more structure, more kind of a built-in discipline and accountability. But now public schools are abandoning that. What could be their one single selling point, their one upside, the one thing, maybe the one thing they might have over homeschooling, they're throwing that overboard. They're saying we're done with that. The structure, the accountability, you got to just, a kid has to get up and go to a class physically, just that requirement. Like as I said, there could be some discipline that comes with that. But now they're saying, you don't even have to come in. You don't have to come to class. So they're getting rid of the structure, the discipline, the accountability. And this isn't just happening in San Francisco, by the way. Fox reports also this week that, here's a report, Chicago public schools officials are debating whether their grading policy is too lenient, with one principal arguing that leniency in grading won't translate into success in the real world for students. When students graduate and are working in jobs, what they experience around grace and flexibility at school is not going to match. Kennedy's principal at Richards Career Academy High School, RCAH, is predominantly ruled by Latino and Black students. The school piloted a new grading policy before the COVID pandemic that allowed them to redo assignments repeatedly and then submit assignments late. The policy was intended to address rising absenteeism in the district. Even if they didn't complete the assignment, the lowest score they could get was 50 rather than 0, a concept known as no-zero grading. This trend of no-zero grading started across the district and the United States as part of a push to give students more chances to show what they learned. Zakai Mohammed said, "We're not issuing grades without knowing the full story. If the student has not shown up, are we just issuing a 0, or are we asking why? We wanted to show up for our kids first, and then grading was secondary," according to a science teacher at RCAHS. So that's what's happening in Chicago and in other districts across the country. No-zero grading, they call it. You get a 50% even if you don't do the assignment. They spot you 50% just out of the gate. And then, if they don't, and they don't want to hand out a grade, they want to ask why. Why did this happen? Well, the problem with this approach, of course, is that it doesn't, as someone said in the article, it doesn't work this way in the real world. In the real world, all that matters is whether you successfully completed the task assigned to you or not. Nobody cares really why or why not. That's going to be the case. And if you want to be successful, that's going to be the case in any line of work. All that matters is if you perform. That's what matters in the end. And And this, again, should be an advantage to sending your kids to a physical school, is that now at least they're in an environment where where performance is what counts. You're getting graded by a teacher who's not your parent. There's some competitiveness, some competition, that all that kind of stuff. But the schools are getting away from that, so then you're left really asking yourself, like, why would anyone send their kid to a public school now? I mean, I didn't see a good reason to do it. I don't think there's been a good reason for decades to do it, but especially at this point, there just isn't one. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.